Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Welcome to the Pendo Masters panel. As you might imagine, we've got a couple long-term Pendo users that have done some super cool things over the years. And happy to have them here to share some of their expertise. So just to get it started, a round of introductions. My name is Avery Sullivan. I'm a technical account manager for the East Coast, working for Pendo. Yeah, East Coast. And I'm based out of New York City. Immediately to my right, we've got Shaun VanWeelden, who is the manager of the success engineering team over at Engagio in the San Francisco Bay Area, where he helps to remove technical roadblocks that both his customers and internal team might have. He's a product expert that uses code, kindness, and empathy to understand customer needs and deliver solutions. On his right, we've got Yishun Yang. You might have seen her session earlier this morning, which was totally packed out the door, so I wasn't able to get in there, but good stuff, I'm sure. And she is a senior customer education manager at Optimizely, also in the San Francisco Bay Area, where she leads the team that builds documentation and in-app education. And to round it out, we've got Turney, who leads the analytics efforts for Rapid7 user experience research to help enable leaders across Rapid7 to make better decisions with timely insights about customer behavior. Yeah. A little more on Travis. He was previously the product manager for Insight IDR, which was Rapid7's security, incident, and event management solution. And before Rapid7, held various roles at IBM, SecureWorks, and Internet Security Systems in product management, account management, and security operations. He's the co-founder of the Data Science Atlanta Meetup and general manager of the Analytics Club Boston. Has an MBA from Emory University's Goizueta, nice, business school, and is a certified information security systems professional and based out of Boston. So one of my clients. So good to see you, Travis. I think first of all, congratulations, you're officially Pendo Masters. So that's a new title for us. You've done it. This is it. To get started, just some questions, probably go down the line first, starting with you, Shaun. What was the main reason that your teams initially bought Pendo?
Yeah, so about a year ago, actually became a customer like 362 days ago, I'm pretty sure. So our renewal has been 3 days. Exact. I guess I can't really play hardball when you're speaking at a conference 2 days before your renewal date. But anyways, we really bought Pendo a year ago because I had this hunch that a lot of people were not using parts of our product. We didn't really have any visibility into what people are doing or not doing there. And so I really wanted to kind of get some analytics for our product team. And it's kind of weird, though, because I'm on the customer success team. And so as a customer success person trying to figure out, like, hey, are people actually adopting? Why are these accounts not renewing with us? Oh, it's because they haven't logged in for 3 months. We should know these things. And so we really bought Pendo to kind of solve some of those problems across the product and the customer success team. That was kind of our big first use case. And from there, we've really grown quite a bit since then. So,
great.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear Shaun talk about that because we came from it from a different side. We originally bought Pendo. Let me roll back a little bit. We used to have an in-app guidance system that we built in-house in our classic platform. And that was built by engineers actually in a hack week, which I think was pretty cool because they were like, we really need onboarding. We really need in-app education. But of course, as happens, their priorities shifted and they needed to build new features, eventually a new platform, and it was really never maintained. And so because we do customer education, we have that mission and drive. We brought in Pendo as the customer education team to build this for us or to deliver that same service and have really grown from there. So we started with the guide side and now are trying to grow into the analytics side rather than Shaun's primary use case.
Yeah, so we started our journey in the fall of 2015 and had talked about a couple different solutions, and it really wasn't getting the traction that we needed. At the time, I was a product manager, and we had a new head of UX come in, Jay Brewer, who spoke yesterday, and really was kind of like, so what are you guys doing to measure how people are successful in the product? And we're like, talk to as many as we can, and we would really want to get a better sampling. So we did the evaluation. Around that time, we happened to acquire a company that happened to be using Pendo as well. So that played a big part in our calculus, but not the only part. We were interested in analytics at first and learned to love guides. And now we've got from a single deployment to 11 instances of Pendo across almost all of our products.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm seeing kind of you starting with analytics, moving into guides, Yeesheen, starting kind of with the guides, moving the app. So I actually didn't know that you guys had like homegrown guides
Yeah,
before.
it was
So
pretty
that's-
rough, actually.
Was it?
Yeah,
Well, yeah. So it's like similar, like tooltip, lightbox type stuff. Interesting. Well, yeah. What were like the bigger struggles with that? I'm just curious.
Primarily, the struggle was with maintenance. It was, I think, easy to stand up something really quick with like light boxes. Like our engineers could do that with a little time, but it was virtually impossible to get them to maintain it over time. And so slowly things started breaking and breaking and breaking. And eventually we took the whole thing down.
Got it. Cool. Since becoming a customer, we'll start back with Travis. Which Pendo features were maybe the most unexpected features or experiences, I guess, that you ended up using that maybe weren't apparent at first? Or any of you, if you have an answer.
Yeah, that's a good question. As far as like unexpected uses, well, one of the things that we wound up doing was kind of, we had a project where we wanted to get an idea if customers were likely to renew or not. And we figured that, customer activity or in-product activity would be a key part of that. We actually looked across like a couple of dozen different data points. And Pendo really kind of like rose to the top, which was, I guess, surprising. I knew it would be important. I didn't realize kind of how important it would be because we looked at other things like, what's the account size, what's their spend, how much data are they sending to us, which is kind of, something that we get from our platform that's kind of outside of the things that users can do. But even over time, consistently, it was like in the top like 3 to 5 features that if they weren't clicking, if they weren't logging in, it became very, very unlikely for them to renew. So that was interesting to learn.
Got it. Okay, so you were able to correlate the renewal to some key features there. And has that been proven to be like pretty good indicator?
It's a very good indicator. So it learns over time, right? So we run the model every day. But as a deal renews or doesn't renew, that kind of changes the average accuracy. But it kind of converges to about 85%. So like about 87% of the time for this one particular product that we rolled it out to, we can pick winners, and about a little less than that at picking losers. And hopefully over time we want to get that up into the 90s.
Very cool. Sorry, the question again, yeah. Features or experiences that were maybe unexpected, or even challenging, I guess. Or you can simmer.
Something I've been thinking about recently is actually something one of our PMs did, which it's part of a thing we've been doing for a little while, but it's gotten me thinking. So something initially when we installed Pendo, we were looking to build onboarding and in-app education. Obviously, we're the customer education team, but something that some of the PMs have gotten very interested in is promoting new features that they're building. And recently, there was a new feature that we built, which is something to do with our event API that's quite buried. It's an important metric to some people to be able to measure in their experiments, which is optimizing as an experimentation platform. But it was really tricky to figure out how to do a notification in-app to promote this feature as well as make it relevant and have it not be like a 12-step guide because it's extremely buried in our UI and you have to have a lot of stuff set up. So what we ended up doing is really closely targeting a segment. So I never really expected to do this. It's like a very targeted feature promotion, I guess, to a very small set of customers. Not very small, small but significant set of customers. Relatively small, yeah, not a blast to our whole base, which is what we had essentially been doing for a while. And what he found was that the usage of that feature was actually shockingly high, which he attributes to this in-app notification, like Lightbox, hey, this is relevant to you, use this feature. And so that to me raises some interesting questions, because I have actually been thinking about not notifying users of new features, not promoting them in the app in this exact way. I'm trying to find more subtle methods of communicating that, and this like totally counters that kind of idea. And I'm wondering if like a more targeted communication just across the board is the way to go. Or so that's been kind of unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's truly something I think we recommend in a lot of ways. Given you have a lot of levers to get hyper-specific, and so you are able to like really acutely target some of those populations. And I personally just think it's cool to like get something super contextual. I'm just like, how did they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that excites me a lot about Pendo, and just in general is like that you can get very contextual. The trickier part then is to how to manage all of those contextual bits and who's seeing what.
Yes,
but yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So I think for us, when we had bought it, I really did kind of see it as, this way to shine a light on our, opportunities for us. But what I hadn't really expected is how much our customer success team and the CSMs themselves would be leveraging Pendo. And so now anytime we have a business review, like we do these quarterly business reviews with the executives and everything, we're actually literally pulling up our Pendo dashboard and saying, hey, here is your account. I see these are your top users. We put the graphs, we put the numbers, and our actual like presentation slides to the executive team saying, hey, here's your adoption. And so I knew that was kind of like possible, but our CSMs, our CS team, and even our VP of CS now was like, hey, this is part of our standard deck now. You should be going to Pendo, actually taking some screenshots and putting those in the presentation. And so now we kind of use this, and our customers love it. They're like, oh, hey, you know what? I didn't realize Johnny over there in like marketing was actually using the heck out of our product. That's super cool. So it's kind of unexpected champions at your customers and whatnot. So bringing those to light really helps go a long way. We actually had this customer who's like, hey, I'm not sure if we're going to renew or not. And it's like, oh, hey, did you know they actually have like 6 users who log in like nearly every single day? Maybe we should kind of chat with these users first to make sure we're all on the same page of what we're actually doing for you guys right now. Maybe some people had kind of adopted it without you guys even knowing to the extent of what that was. So that was really cool for us from the CS side. So.
Sure. Yeah, and we see that all the time where there's even kind of like siloed groups of users, or like users that are using the product but don't even know the other power users. And so yeah, just being able to like connect those dots can be super valuable sometimes. We can just stick with you for now, Shaun. Did you have any other teams that ended up using Pendo that were maybe unexpected or kind of fell into it?
Yeah, so I really think of Pendo as not just a product tool, but really a tool for the entire company. I believe that very passionately. And so we even have, our marketing team does it for the kind of the field marketing, like, hey, we're doing something for Dreamforce or whatever the case may be. Let's go target some people in the San Francisco area and say, hey, we're going to be here. I see that you are kind of this power user of this product. We would love to chat with you and get your feedback, while at our booth, that kind of thing. And even for sales, we actually use it for cross opportunities. Like, hey, so one of the coolest things I think we've done at Engagio is we separated out by each product the usage, and we put it into Salesforce at the account level. So I say, hey, you know what, you're using the heck out of one product, but you never use this other product that's very closely related. We should probably be selling you or enabling you on this other product. And so our VP of sales will literally be logging in to Salesforce, check out all the accounts and look at the Pendo usage data across our products and figure out where there's massive kind of opportunities of you're using the heck out of one, you haven't touched this other one yet. Why is that? Let's kind of engage you there and see if we can get you to kind of expand your scope with us. And so literally the product team's pretty straightforward. I've talked about the CS team already quite a bit, but even across like marketing and sales, we save a lot of time. And also from the engineering standpoint, instead of building our own in-app guides now, we can use Pendo to leverage that stuff. And we've also even put like our usage data from Pendo in our application. And so instead of having our engineers have to go track and all the telemetry, we are literally pulling the Pendo data and putting it in our app for our admin users to go see their usage. So we just made it as part of an actual feature in our product with that. So there's a lot of ways that we've kind of, Pendo's helped our entire company now. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll ask the same question. I'm always interested. It's funny how it does kind of get integrated, and different teams end up using different or similar features. So
Yeah, I love the CSM use case for the QBRs. That's awesome. Yeah, the different teams that use Pendo at our organizations, obviously, customer education, we work really, really closely with customer support. And so they often use it as a support deflection tool. I don't know if your support teams are like ours, but they are heavily data-driven. They capture a tremendous amount of information about what are friction points for customers, and because it increases their queue. And so they are really good about going in and finding opportunities to add in deflection points and guides and information that will help lower their support volume. Additionally, I think the other two teams are our PMM team, our product marketing managers, use Pendo. Primarily, they do it through me. They're like, hey, can you put this in? They view it as a channel, and I guess I'm the channel. And then also our PM team. They are trying some interesting things, one I just mentioned, but also trying to get people into betas, trying to figure out how to promote their features, things like that.
Yeah, so when we began, I was kind of the one-man band for Pendo, and what we try to do is to make that more kind of scalable and decentralized. So you may have seen Pendo released a blog last year on the concept of Pendo SWAT teams. So having kind of a trio or a quartet of folks that have like a vested interest in the success of Pendo. So we have a PM, a UX designer, and a solutions marketer, at least, to kind of go and say like, okay, what guides do we have that are published right now? What guides should we have? Like having kind of regular reviews with those teams so that, maybe there's something in there that's stale and you want to make sure that you're serving content that's going to be as current and as timely and as helpful and useful as possible so you can really engage those users and really get them to kind of try not only kind of your core elements but new stuff as well. So one of the challenges is kind of like, as a new product comes on board, like we maybe have something that's just launching and kind of putting that together and, enabling them and supporting them to make sure that that they're successful. But really kind of the drivers for those teams tends to be the UX designers, which, I would expect kind of the PMs at the start kind of coming as a PM, but they're really kind of partnering closely with and kind of supporting and enabling the product management team to be successful.
Yeah, and we definitely see a lot of customers where, we have like a lot of mutual excitement between different areas, but it does become like a management kind of flow, and they're like, well, we want to make sure we're not stepping on each other's toes or no one's doing double work. Like even our CS team definitely pushes the idea of, the SWAT team is what we call it internally, where we have like kind of an interdepartmental approval where like different people write the content and then like design checks it out and then someone else checks the segment because they're really in touch with all like the metadata and things, and then we flip it. So that's, it's fun to see those processes, and customers take them all sorts of different directions just depending on how big their teams are, how everything's structured. So super cool. Yeesheen,
Yes.
which aspects of your job have you been able to accomplish more easily with the help of Pendo? If any.
It's definitely made my job busier. The aspects of my job that I can accomplish more easily, I think, are actually the in-app onboarding, because if we did not have Pendo, I would be running around begging our engineering team or our product team and making the business case that we need to build this, and then trying to show ROI and then trying to get them to build more. And so that's definitely offloaded that aspect tremendously. I guess one of the things, I don't think this is how you mean this question, but I'll mention it because it's really on my mind, which is customer education is sometimes housed in product and sometimes we're in success, right? It depends on the organization. We happen to be in success, like Shaun, you are. One of the challenges, though, is that it's very tightly aligned to product goals, right? Our goal is to get you to use the product well. We maybe have some customer context that's a little bit different, but tightly aligning. And actually, Pendo has helped a lot with that, surprisingly, because we are in the app building onboarding, right? And so now product is coming up to us with interesting questions like, why are you building this? Or, what are you measuring? How do you know you're being successful? Like really, really valid, important, sometimes annoying questions. But, it is actually getting us closer into partnership, which is what we've been looking for all along, right? And so it's been driving that conversation forward. So I don't know if that's making my job easier, but it is definitely been more productive.
Yeah, I don't think it's any instant solution where you have your feet up on the desk, but definitely taking off reliance on engineering and things and getting.
It's definitely moving us forward, which is awesome.
Yes, right, exactly, pushing that forward. What I am kind of curious about how that onboarding process, I know that's something like you guys have really dug in on. What does that look like today? Just kind of overview of onboarding, I guess.
Like what is it if you're a user coming into our app, what do you see in our onboarding?
Kind of, and like,
Yeah.
because I think you're using a Pendo Guide Center in there.
Ah.
Is there like a
Yeah.
welcome initial flow, or like, have you worried about like overloading the user initially? Or
Yes. We do worry about that. Hi, Rick. Rick built it for us. So what our onboarding looks like in the app is we have a sort of initial welcome flow where we kind of show you our guide center. So this is something else we have built in the app. It's a little question mark right now in our global nav, and it pops up this guide center that has a checklist of the things that we think you need to do, right? And those are Pendo Guides. And the reason we built that is because with the old in-house onboarding system that we built, it was something that if you dismissed, you could never see again, which is really not an experience you want, right? Like maybe your customer doesn't want to see it right now. They just want to explore and they want to come back on their own. That's pretty important to be able to deliver. So that's in our guide center. The other things in our guide center are just help resources. We also have something called Optiverse Academy, which is courses you can take on your own. They're free, certifications, things like that, and as well as our knowledge base, which I think new users use very, very heavily, as well as advanced users too, because we have a lot of advanced content. So it drives you to that. That actually, interestingly, that's something I added only recently as the second step you see when you come into our app, because I didn't think before that that was something that customers wanted to see, but we actually saw a huge uptick in people clicking that and guide completion, like going on to the guides, completing more of the guides that we delivered after that, after we showed that resource. So people actually didn't go there and then just stop using the rest of our Pendo Guides. They actually started, I think, check the Pendo Guide and they see that there's going to be value here in the education we're delivering in the app, and they continue to consume more of that. So that was an interesting learning insight for us. And then we go on to like sort of target key actions that you need to take. So we think of it as 6 steps that you really want to do before launching your first experiment, which is the thing we want you to do when you're onboarding. And so we kind of target all of those in order.
Great, yeah, and we've definitely seen, like, even internally for us, just getting users to consume and like have a dedicated space, to go for information. Like, people want to be able to do that on their own, I believe, like very broadly, and so like lots of people that'll dig through documentation and try their very best and then be frustrated when they reach out. So it's nice to have it.
It's
right there.
it's really nice to have it in one place, and I think of it as like presenting them with a friendly place to go rather than like having to grapple with our support or like go back to their CSM, which some customers want to do, but a lot of customers want to serve themselves if they can, right?
Sure. And I can keep chugging along. If you guys do have responses to each other, feel free to chime in. So Shaun, I know that we talked about, Travis, how you have started building this churn model and can start getting some insight into predicting that. I know you have kind of a health score it's kind of similar, right? Is that also for kind of predicting churn?
Yeah, it is. So pretty much, when you think about health at Engagio, I think there's kind of 2 aspects to it. There's the relationship, soft, fuzzy things with the customer, and there's like the actual, hey, are you actually using the thing you just purchased part of it as well. And so we really use Pendo to measure that part. I have this theory that customers will love you or hate you, but seeing if they actually see value or not can be determined based off Pendo data. We have people who love us, but they still don't churn, or they still churn because they never used it. They never logged in. Their team never actually used the thing. It's like, oh, hey, NPS 10, you guys are fantastic. I love the thought leadership. And, oh, shoot, we're not actually seeing any value. Sorry. And so I really think Pendo plays a really important role in that. Like cutting through all the spoken words and saying, like, are you actually seeing value? Are you actually logging in and getting what you paid for out of our solution? And so we kind of think about it as 2 different ways. We think about it as, how many total clicks are they doing across the products that they purchased? And then how many users, what percentage of users that they added themselves? We don't charge per user, but hey, if you added 50 users, only 5 log in, there's probably something a little bit off there we probably want to dig into a little bit. And so we don't use it as kind of this is our churn indicator, but we use it as a sanity check to say, CSM says, hey, you know what, I think this account's going to renew, no problem, but they haven't logged in a month, and we only have 3 users out of 50 who've ever logged in the last 3 months. That's kind of it starts a conversation. And so we really think about it as a conversation starter based off those 2 metrics. People like me like to go crazy with analytics and say, hey, I have 18 different signals. I know whether they went to this page or not and all this other stuff. And boil it down to 2. It's how many clicks across the products are they doing, and what percentage of users that they out of themselves are actually still logging in every 2 weeks on a two-week period. And then as far as the churn thing, our CTO actually had this really interesting diagnosis not too long ago, where it says, our weekly active user count, if you have more than 6 weekly active users, you have like a 95% chance of renewing. If you have less than 2 weekly active users, you have about like a 10% chance of renewing. And so you can kind of say, oh, okay, so we can solve a retention issue by getting adoption up, which is a really interesting kind of realization to come to us. Like, hey, I want to improve our churn rate and everything else, but to do that, what I really need to be focusing on is actually adoption. So, which plays into Pendo very well. Of like, hey, you want a tool to go measure adoption or increase adoption? I guess Pendo can kind of do these things very, very well. And so that's kind of our new thought process, that we've been kind of on recently. Of like, hey, to solve any kind of churn issue, adoption is the way to do it. And adoption kind of can be measured and created in Pendo. So we're really excited about that opportunity for us. So.
Yeah, great. Yeah, adopt.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll let Yeesheen come in as well. She probably has more experience than me. I think to Avery's point, it really comes down to like really thoughtful segmentation. Because there's things like we do not show some guides until like, hey, you've been a user for 30 days. At the 30-day mark, maybe we'll start showing you these cooler features. Or, hey, you've been a user for 30 days and you checked out a bunch of this other relevant stuff. Now let me go show you this thing that you haven't quite clicked on yet. And so instead of just bombarding all users within the first week, it's like, no, actually, sometimes there's no rush. It's like, hey, you know what? As you mature and become a more of a power user, then I really want to start showing you those guides, but not until that point. And so I really think the thoughtful segmentation there can play a big role. I don't know if you have any comments, Yeesheen.
Not really. We take a pretty similar approach, which is when you're in the first 30 days, we show you nothing but onboarding. And after that, the app is a lot quieter from the Pendo side. One thing that we do show is, like Shaun said, if we know that you are a little more advanced user, but you haven't used a very critical or valuable part of the app, we'll show it to you. The other thing is a lot of the practice of experimentation is about more than using our app. Obviously, actually, most of it is. And so we'll like sort of start to push thought leadership to you, like here's how you become better at your job. Yeah, quite a lot. We try to give you enough context in the app because that's where you are. But then, there's only certain amount of information, in my opinion, that you can deliver in that moment because presumably somebody's trying to do something while they're in the app, right? And so then we'll link out to like Optiverse courses and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of to expand on that, when you say like when do you know the user is kind of the training wheels are off and they're more self-sufficient, like. I mean, we're constantly doing like an NPS poll. I mean, so we're getting kind of that feedback. I mean, every quarter, every 6 months. So that kind of gives us like our gauge where if someone's submitting like a promoter, a 9 or a 10, or giving positive written feedback, we know they're doing okay. Because I mean, yeah, they told us so. Otherwise, if they are maybe a lower score, we do reach out, check in, see what they are using, and yeah, always push like kind of critical features to make sure they get engaged. Yeah, of course. This one's for Travis.
Okay.
And so all of you have actually we've done some of these road shows that we're calling Pendorama. So we've had Boston happening, Bay Area, and then we have Austin, Texas coming up, which is exciting. But when we were in Boston a few months ago, Travis, you kind of walked through how you've utilized guides to progress users through a free trial experience that was kind of like a what, why, and how process. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about how that went.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started that journey last fall, and we had a particular product that a couple years prior we had tried kind of a do-it-yourself trial experience, and the previous one really didn't go so well. So there was a lot of kind of differing opinions about whether we should do it or not, so we wanted to make sure it was really, really good. We had recently hired a content strategist who kind of led that part of the process from a UX experience. And really what we aspired to do was to set something up so that customers could get set up so that they're able to use kind of the core aspects of the product, so they're enabled for success, and then kind of guide them around the main areas that we would expect a productive user to use. And to do this, what we ended up doing was we did a services arrangement with Pendo to create a custom guide experience. And we found that to be really, really successful. So basically what you see is kind of like a 4-phase process, right? It's like, hey, welcome to the product. Here's kind of the basic things that you need to do to get set up. And set up kind of what we call a collector for the different event sources so that they're sending data to the platform. Once they're doing that, we kind of walk them around the product. But while we're doing these guides, we also link to our online documentation site so that not only can they kind of see what they're doing in the product, they understand how to do it and are able to not only enable themselves, but their coworkers as well. And we found it to be really successful. People really kind of adopted this, and this was for a particular product. Now we're kind of rolling that out to other products as well, and the feedback's been really great.
Great. This one's for Shaun. So I did in advance of this, of course, just peek into everyone's Pendo subscriptions, just see what's going on and get a feel. And Engagio has a ton of metadata. Like, you guys have so much coming in.
Yeah, we do have like 80 or so custom fields that we imported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I want to do something I'm calling the segment.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Which I just thought of. I think that's pretty good.
It is pretty good.
And see, is there... Yeah, I mean, like, you have all this information, and you clearly want it in Pendo. What sort of, like, segments are you using there? Just maybe a few examples.
Yeah, so, we really wanted to kind of have a very similar experience to, like, running a report in Salesforce inside Pendo. And so we actually have a very tight kind of Salesforce to Pendo sync now. And so all those custom fields kind of come from Salesforce or Intercom. We have a couple other systems kind of feeding into it. But we really want to make sure we understand, at a business level, who is this user? Who is this account? How are they relevant to us? Are they enterprise? Are they small? That kind of thing. But we actually could do some really cool dashboards already now and say, hey, you know what? Let's compare usage between enterprise versus like mid-market versus SMB, and see like, hey, what's the usage pattern over there? And so these are the kind of pieces of metadata that we really want to run. We also tied like a lot of. I was just telling someone else before the session, a lot of people when they create their tracking script or the little snippet on their website, they just add the email address of the user and the instance ID, and that's it. And they kind of say, hey, you know what? All right, now I know who this is. But I really think you can do so much more. There's a lot of data in your database that's being probably pushed to your application. Like, hey, is this an admin user or not? Do they have these beta flags turned on? There's more context about the user that's already in your database that you could also be adding to that tracking script. And so whether you use it from Salesforce or not, there's probably a lot more context beyond the email address that you can really get into this thing. The other cool part that we did was we really want to make sure we understand who a user actually is. What team are they on? Are they on a marketing team, a sales team, that kind of stuff. And so we actually kind of took this big data initiative to go populate these job titles and bring them down into personas and that kind of stuff. And now we can kind of say, hey, you know what? Marketing is using the app in this way, while sales teams are using the app in this way. And so now we can do that directly in Pendo with all of the data. So we really think that understanding, who these people actually are in real life, the actual business tie-in to Engagio is really helpful. So that's what we've done with our 80 or so custom fields there.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm thinking too, yeah, like gives you a lot of ability to like slice and dice for analytics, which is cool. We pull in a good amount of things from Salesforce for our Pendo instance. And like one use case I'm just thinking about is like I have a lot of CS use cases. I mean, that's just where I'm kind of living. But we'll have maybe like a new CSM join, or like people get moved around, territories are shifted, and like introduce them that way, like target based on the CSM and give them a guide.
We have the assigned CSM and the AE as their own kind of segment. So every AE and every CSM has their own segment in Pendo as well. They go say, hey, how are my accounts doing specifically? Who are my top accounts? Who's at the bottom of the list? That kind of stuff as well.
Right, because that's all they're really interested in. I mean, probably when they're in there primarily. So it's cool. This one's for Yeesheen. So I mean, I feel like Travis and Shaun, you represent like pretty technical personas. I mean, you're working with a lot of data APIs and like doing some creative stuff. I don't like saying non-technical because
I'm not technical.
Okay.
I can say it.
we're all technical, but yeah, as a maybe less technical persona, what has your experience been, I guess, with,
Yeah.
or has that like been a challenge with Pendo or anything?
It's both, right?
Yeah.
I think that Pendo's sort of WYSIWYG experience has actually been pretty great for us. I can go in there. Oh, what does it mean? What you see is what you get?
The editor thing.
Say it
It's
together.
the editor thing. The visual editor, I guess. Yeah, that has actually been pretty easy for me, being able to put out like messaging, add images, like on that level I can, add like links and all of that. Where it becomes more challenging is to move away from templates that we have built. If I want to like have a custom look or something, then we really rely on, actually we leverage our support team to do some of this because they are more technical and sometimes they have time and it's a great learning experience for them. And then when it's beyond their bandwidth or abilities, we leverage our professional services, Pendo's professional services, Rick specifically.
Got it. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
know that's, yeah, I mean, we have definitely identified, especially with like guide creation, kind of that technical or less technical
Yeah.
persona. And I know that's something we've been working on. So I think there was a sneak peek kind of at where the designer's heading today. So yeah, super excited, I
That
think,
was
to try
really
to merge the worlds there where,
I think the other thing, though, is that as a non-technical user, the part that I find surprisingly easy is actually the analytics side, which is a weird thing to say because we are not heavy users of the analytics side
Sure.
yet, as much as I'd like to be. But I've found that setting up pages, guides, paths, like tags, that's actually all been like pretty self-explanatory. So that's
Good.
pretty great.
good.
Mind if I wait?
Of course.
So some of our Pendo users are non-technical, as you say. So we want to try to make it as easy as possible for them to create great guide experiences. So through collaborating with our UX engineering team, which kind of ensures that there are standards across products, so making sure that engineers are using style guides and things like that, we built a custom set of guide templates that align to our style guide with some options that are things like you can check a box to kind of add an element or take it away, and make it as simple as possible to kind of create a title, create the content, add a picture, create a link, and try to come up with as many kind of recipes as possible for users so that they're able to get started. If they want to get creative, they can break the template. Generally, we kind of try to get a little bit closer to them and help advise them so that they don't step into it. But generally, that really helps kind of lower kind of the steepness of the learning curve so that the organization can kind of embrace Pendo.
Sure. Yeah, it's nice to have templates set up, a little more on the Rails option.
Yeah, we set it up like our very first month, and oh my gosh, that's saved us so many times now to have those templates just really well built. I would invest upfront if you can in just creating like 4 or 5 like really solid templates. It will pay off in many ways.
Yeah, I totally second that. And if you're not someone comfortable getting into the code too, I mean, like take a UX designer or someone that front-endy for half an hour, and you can just probably get your colors in there and you're set for a long time. So, but yeah, very excited about the future designer. That'll be great. Going back to Travis, I know you use Pendo data to measure product adoption growth. What sort of data are you using to do that, or does that kind of tie into what we were talking about before with some key features? It's
related.
Okay.
So when we talk about product adoption, we mean some very specific things. So we'll go to a product manager and a UX lead and kind of collaborate to say, like, if a customer could do one thing, what could they do? What's kind of the core essence of that product? And we try to capture that. It depends on the product. Mostly, I kind of prefer to do page tagging over feature tagging because we move really fast and sometimes we break things, and which is a good thing because we learn. But try to keep them a little bit more page oriented. So we'll have like 2-3 pages. We try to keep it simple. So we may not be capturing every single click or every single page view, but we're capturing the essence of that. So a product could have like, say, 2 to 3 what we call activities. And then we'll look at that and baseline it. So we started this effort last year, and we said, okay, as of the end of 2016, let's do a 90-day look back and see what customers are doing, and then kind of get an idea of like what's the average customer. And then we'll go and say, okay, let's look at that on a monthly basis, and we report on it kind of roughly quarterly to a leadership team, and we'll say like, okay, for this product, on average, we saw maybe a 50% increase in activity A, 80% increase in activity B, and maybe like a brand new feature or something that's relatively new that we've added to, you might see a bigger jump. And we basically take a simple average of those. If a product manager has a preference, we can weight those to say like maybe this is worth 50% and these others maybe a little bit less because they're maybe like not as new or not as core. And then we kind of take that and aggregate that. So then we'll go and kind of add up all of the different products, and we do a kind of a weighted average based on the number of customers. And that gives us kind of a portfolio level product adoption score. And then that's kind of something that we look at as kind of like an organizational goal to say like we want to move adoption in the right direction, X%, and then that kind of gives us kind of a measuring tool to see how we're doing in terms of adoption. One of the kind of corollaries or kind of companion measurements to that is a term that we call shelfware. And basically we define shelfware as if a organization hasn't logged in the last 90 days, that's a red alarm. They get put on kind of like a most wanted list. That goes to customer success. That goes to leadership to say like, these guys are in danger. Let's reach out to them and see if we can get them engaged, turn them around, and make sure that they're happy and successful.
I'm imagining like a screen over in CS that auto-populates like most wanted Wild West style, which I think would be pretty cool. So anyone wants to pick up a pet project, I would love to see it. Yeesheen, I kind of took, yeah.
Yeah, so that's important, and it could vary, right? You might have some accounts that are relatively small, we have some accounts that have lots of users that are regularly there often. We look through the lens of the account. When we were first kind of approaching the problem, we wanted to say like, all right, who's the champion? And let's kind of focus on that champion, because if that person leaves the organization, that could be a pretty significant risk. So what we found is that you can have who you think is the champion actually change over time. So if you're watching kind of one user, maybe they're kind of key in kind of helping things get off the ground, and then another organization, another group within the company actually becomes kind of the key user base for the product. So we want to make sure to watch everyone. We don't specifically track if like a particular user hasn't logged in general. We just want to make sure that someone's there. And if no one's there, it's obviously an indicator. Ideally, we would want to have more users, so we kind of encourage users to kind of go and invite their coworkers. It's a little bit challenging for us because we're a security tool, so there is kind of a bit of a walled garden around those tools in general. One of the things that we're experimenting with is kind of cross promotion. So if you use product A, maybe you would like to try product B, and that kind of gives you kind of a broader base within an organization. It makes it a little bit more stickier.
Have you seen traction with that? I'm really curious.
We're kind of just in like the experimentation phase with that. So next year we'll be able to read out on it.
Great, perfect segue. I was going to see, so maybe next quarter, 2018, what are the big initiatives you guys are working on, or just kind of iterating on the same things?
So we have a pretty wild experiment going on right now. Two major initiatives. One is acquisition. So we want to make it easier and cheaper to acquire customers, and we're using Pendo as a tool to do part of that. Partly through this trial process, but there are other kind of, it's a litany of different projects. So basically we've assembled this kind of team of teams, like cross-functional group within the company that is doing this big experiment. And it's actually really exciting. So you've got kind of like representatives from product, from customer success, from engineering, from, pretty much like everything, all of the major functions within the company, they have representation. So the idea is to kind of like, let's see how quickly we can rapidly iterate and start kind of delivering and really trying to eliminate a lot of these kind of organizational silos and boundaries and really just kind of go and let's hack this and make something really cool really quickly. The other side to that that has some of those same themes is around expansion, and kind of the cross promotion is the key of that. So we have a couple of products where they're essentially, we kind of look at them as like what we would call like on-ramps. So we have a new trial for a product. I'm not stumping here, but it's a product that people, if they sign up for it, it's basically a free product. They use it for a while. If they hit a certain threshold, we'll say like, hey, would you be interested in this other complementary product that you've identified all of this, potentially malicious behavior? Would you like to be able to investigate that and dig into it a lot more deeply? So the idea is to kind of over the time, 12, 18 months, 24 months, to be able to grow that so that we've got a much broader base of users, and instead of just kind of one particular use case, making them kind of really part of our family of products.
I've got 3 things on my mind. 3.
Let's hear.
Yeah. One is actually something. It's actually what Shaun talked about. We use Gainsight, and Pendo and Gainsight have a integration, and so we really want to leverage it to show our CSMs how healthy their accounts are, as well as try to drive close the loop essentially with our educational resources, right? So if you know that that your account has not been doing very much onboarding in the app, like, CSM, please reach out, that kind of thing. Trying to build a health score around that and some action items. 2, that was actually those are 2 sort of. Another piece of that is that we really want to pilot, hopefully, education that starts in our training world, which we're attaching as services in our organization, and allowing people to practice that using Pendo Guides in the app. So this is something we're just totally exploring, trying to get like a static URL so we can send people from a training course to a piece of the app so they can see what it actually looks like outside of a screenshot, that kind of thing, or outside of a video that we create. So that's number 2 on my mind. That's a very nice to have, not a must. And 3, we are becoming an organization, funnily enough, that is experimenting more and more in our own product, and trying to become an experiment-driven organization, essentially. And so one of the things that's top of mind for me is, where does Pendo play in that? How do we use our analytics really, really effectively in that world? How do we build guides and really test them as the product is also being tested, and really like getting a very tight cycle there? So those are my 3.
Great.
So I think for me, I have 2 things on my mind that I'm really excited about, looking forward to next year here. So one is something that we already kind of started doing just recently, which is we really want to make sure we have a very consistent onboarding experience and that we are getting our customers off on the best foot possible. And so we actually sat down as a CS team and kind of cross-departmental, to Travis's point, and said, hey, what does a good, healthy onboarding look like? What are the key things that you need to have happen to be successfully onboarded? And a lot of those actually came from Pendo, like, hey, you need to go visit our engagement page. You need to go added, 3 different users and a bunch of these other things. And the cool thing about this was Pendo was actually like, over half of them was like, hey, that's straight up a feature in Pendo right now that we can go track. And so we actually just made a report in Pendo at the account level that says, hey, here's all the features I care about for our onboarding checklist. And actually, we're going to automate the entire thing now. So we have this object in Salesforce. It's going to be automatically populated by Pendo feature data. And it'll be like, hey, here's a snapshot of the onboarding at the 15 and 30-day mark. Are we meeting all the things we need to be meeting? And if we're not, there's going to be automatic escalation to our VP, to the kind of this executives, and say, hey, you know what? These customers, we might need to reach out from like a higher level here and go figure out what's going on. They're not meeting the goals that we set out for them. And like, why is that? So I think this whole onboarding snapshot and kind of overall customer adoption snapshot and doing that in a meaningful way is something I'm very excited about. We also are just at the very tip of the iceberg for guides. We kind of want to go to Yeesheen's route. Yeesheen and I kind of just trade ideas. We both come from opposite perspectives. Like, all right, let's kind of converge here. So we really want to kind of get our onboarding flow with guides really well built out as well. So that's kind of on our mind quite a bit for this next year too, is really going into that part a lot more. So.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
And we're reaching the end of time here, so I did want to open it up to the room if anyone wanted to ask any questions of. Yes.
Yeah, good question for you, Shaun. Are you
So when you say communities, is that like kind of like, hey, we have a community around our product and people are participating, like kind of like a Slack community or like one of those websites you log into to share thoughts and
Exactly.
okay.
So we use Salesforce, our product.
Yep,
is
sure.
a platform, and so what we utilize is the Salesforce communities. So our customers essentially have members,
Okay.
and so they have our customers, right?
Yep.
So what we'll be doing is putting a snippet of code into our front-facing pages, and I'd like to understand some of the data that probably could be used to show value to our customers and how they're using our product.
So really kind of getting the understanding of how those community members are interacting with their own stuff. Okay. So we don't have that in our case yet. We don't have kind of a really well-built community outside the Slack community that we have for us. But I do think there's some really cool things of like, hey, here are your top contributors. And there's a lot of kind of like, hey, here's people who are really engaged, sharing, learning, that kind of stuff. So you kind of start to paint the picture of, hey, we want to, or also just as like a pre-sales thing, we really want you to get part of our community because people who do see all these good things happen to them as they are part of it. And so that's kind of where my mindset would be without knowing too much more context of where I probably would see Pendo adding value that way. So, yeah. Yeah, good question.
Norm.
So I just kind of had a general question for you guys as far as, at least from my understanding, it sounds like you were kind of, like patient zero, if not close to it, as far as Pendo in your organization. So how is it as far as getting that buy-in from other teams and getting that excitement going and like going to your team and saying, I have this really cool thing that I need you to help me tag every button in. Like getting them like pull away and like do that sort of stuff and helping them see that. Like how was that road for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's tough, right? PMs are busy folks. They are, putting in all sorts of time to build this wonderful thing. So we have to sell them on, hey, how about we give you a flashlight so you can actually see what's going on in this dark cavern when you're trying to build this product without these other insights or, a small fraction of what's actually happening. And what we found is in addition to kind of enabling them with kind of these SWAT teams to support them so they don't feel like they're alone, is we want to bring the data to where the end users live. So, for example, we're big users of Domo. A lot of our execs and leaders use it, so we bring Pendo data into Domo through kind of the visualizing product adoption growth, through the renewals indicator, and a new customer health initiative as well, so that if they're logging into Domo every day, they're more likely to come check this out. If they're really not logging into Pendo as often, that's okay. We would like them to, but if they'd rather, we'll bring it to where they live. And for folks like customer success, they're living in Salesforce every day. So what we might do is either bring that directly into Salesforce, or we have the option of kind of embedding a Domo card into Salesforce as well. And just kind of making it super easy for users to consume. So if they're in an app every day, bringing it to that app.
So for at Engagio, what I did when I first bought Pendo, I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is freaking awesome. But I had to go kind of tell every team that it was freaking awesome as well. And so I think to kind of Travis's point, though, you have to kind of just start doing a little bit of something. And I said, hey, you know what? VP of Sales, here's our product option by product. We sold all these customers. I just put this in Salesforce for you. Like, let me know if you have any feedback on it. And just kind of showing, like, hey, marketing team, check out what's really cool. And actually, I literally took a screenshot of Pendo uses this as well. Like, hey, we have Pandemonium coming up. And I said, hey, I literally took the screenshot, put it on our Slack channel, and said, hey, isn't this guide awesome? Like, if you ever want to do something like this, let me know. I can hook you up. Right? And so I think it's kind of like educating people about what's possible and like really listening for opportunities. So I always have my ears open, like, oh, hey, can Pendo solve this? And if it can, I'll kind of put like, plant a little seed here of like, hey, you know what? I think this is possible with Pendo. If you want to kind of pursue this option more, here's what it would look like. Possibly, let me know. And so I just have like eyes and ears wide open at my organization to go figure out like ways to kind of go plant these seeds all over the place. And so I just kind of like, that was my approach, and it's worked out really, really well so far. But it wasn't like an overnight thing. I did have some trainings though too of like, hey, you know what? For marketing, here's some slides about how you as a marketing team could use Pendo, or as a sales team, or whoever else. So I think kind of come up with a little bit of presentation at the next team meeting was really helpful too. So.
Yeah, I would just echo what these guys said, which is it's a bit of a slog, I would say. Interestingly, the people to first get on board, aside from the success team, is actually our executive level. They were very excited about Pendo, and it's very easy to show them the value. For us, the real challenge has been the product and design teams. And so I've kind of tried to key in on things that I know that they're interested in. In fact, after or during Harsh's keynote or his thing today, when he talked about the heat mapping that he had done in the app, I sent that screenshot to our designer and I was like, hey, I know that you're doing an audit right now. Is this something you want? And he was like, yes. When he's been resisting me with Pendo for a little some time now. And so I think it's like finding moments like that and trying to figure out what they need to try and get more adoption.
Got it. And we are out of time here, but we will all be around. Definitely feel free to come up to us and ask any follow-up questions. Travis, Yeesheen, Shaun, thank you so much for being here. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody.